Hey, hockey fans, T-Boss is 13-3 here with top shelf guest, Marshfield, Wisconsin native, Culver Academy alum, Yale Bulldog, Minnesota Whitecap, and current child psychiatrist at Marshfield Clinic in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, Dr. Allie Jones. This episode is sponsored by Riverside Bike and Skate, Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, Dooley's Pub, Eau Claire Ford, Computer Recovery Associates, and Markin & Johnson. Mogi.
Well, Allie, thanks so much for taking the time to come and talk with us today. We're excited about this. As we talked before we started rolling the tape here, we originally started part of our podcast always had the medical minute, and we ran through the whole plethora of elbow injuries and shoulders and knees and everything you can think of, but we never got to the mental aspect of the game. So when we had the opportunity to sit down and talk with you, we thought it's just going to fit in perfectly. You're a hockey gal and a mind person. Hopefully you don't find anything wrong with us. Too bad, at least I hope not. So anyway, thank you so much. Welcome. And we're looking forward to talking with you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
You grew up in Marshfield, Wisconsin, a hockey player who became a psychiatrist.
Yep.
That's, I don't know what the connection there is, but when did you start playing hockey?
Yeah, so I actually started speed skating. So that's what I did first. And so I did kind of the local circuit of speed skating, like Badger State games and other things.
Sure.
I just thought it was really interesting. So that's kind of how I learned to skate. And then my brother was playing. My dad was coaching hockey, still at a nice little outdoor rink there in Marshfield. And at some point I thought to myself, like, hey, I'm a good skater. I'm going to all the practices and the games. Like, why am I not playing hockey? So I joined the team and originally just kind of practiced, as a mite and then a squirt, and eventually started playing, which was really kind of a great opportunity. So yeah, that's kind of how I got started.
And you played with the boys the whole time.
Yeah. So
even through Bantam.
Yep, exactly. So at that time, there wasn't a lot of girls programs. There wasn't a lot of girls playing. I don't know if there was any. We didn't have the social media world so much back then to explore different opportunities, but grew up playing mostly with boys. Yeah.
At what time in your life did you feel that you were able to compete with the boys? I mean, did you feel comfortable right away?
Yeah, I think because I had that speed skating background, I was a pretty good skater. And so, the skills of, stick handling, shooting, that kind of stuff came along. But I think, as a mite and squirt, I did okay. I could compete with them at a fairly decent level.
What position did you play?
So starting out, I played wing. I don't know if that's just kind of where they put me or where I ended up, but I started playing wing and then eventually moved to defense. I think, child development and things like that kind of comes into play. And I think I grew a little bit sooner than other boys on the team. So was able to play defense and pretty much played defense through Pee-wees and then into Bantams, played defense as well. And then when I went to high school, that was kind of my position as well.
So as you were growing up, did you have any favorite players or any role models you looked up to?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I mean, I think, again, like the women's hockey game was just kind of growing. So there wasn't a lot of females that I really had heard of playing or played in the area. Kind of as I got older, the national team, the U.S. women's national team, started to develop. They played in national tournaments or international tournaments, and started to really watch some of them. And then, kind of as I moved into high school, the women had won the gold medal. So in 1998 was when they won the gold medal. So that was really a great experience, kind of seeing like on the forefront of like, wow, we can really do this. We can, there's really some opportunities here. There was one female hockey player, Shelley Looney, that played. She scored the game-winning goal and coached at a camp that I went to, and I was like, "Wow, this woman is really impressive. Like, this is really neat." And I can be like her. Like, this is really an opportunity that I have. And then and it actually funny, I later in life as adults, I played against her in a national tournament, which was just kind of funny. Like, wow, you were my like childhood, hero. And now I'm like skating alongside you as like a grown adult. And then when I went to high school, one of my coaches was Kelly O'Leary, who played on the women's national team in the early 90s. So that was, again, kind of a really great opportunity to see like a woman that had played at a really high level that then was coming back to coach the youth.
Oh, you had some great mentors.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
Obviously, you eventually excelled at the sport and were recognized for that. So at what point did your family or you determine Marshfield was too small? I need to go to a better school to hone my skills.
Yeah, no, so, I think Marshfield is fairly small. So that, there was a lot of driving, right? So I played boys. I don't know that Marshfield, we were ever at a level where there was college scouts coming to look at the boys. So, so much, right? I mean, maybe here and there. And so I felt like, well, there's not really going to be someone that's going to see a boy play and then mention to the women's coach, like, hey, you should go look at this girl playing. So I started to travel. My family, I joined a team down in Madison. Now the Capitals, I think at that time they were called the Challengers or the Wisconsin Selects. There was a few different programs down there. And we were traveling down there. So we were going down there for practice, about 2.5 hours each way. And then for games on the weekends, in addition to playing with the boys team in Marshfield. So it just got to be a lot for my family, and with weather in the winter in Wisconsin. And it was, there was just lots of challenges there. My brother was in high school, as well, and playing hockey and doing other things. So, we just got to a point, and then Culver was starting a girls program, and thought, hey, this is really a good opportunity. I can go, I can practice every day. I can have some great coaches, get a good education, and really have that exposure on like a wider level. So
any reason why you didn't, or maybe you did you look at any other academies? Shattuck St. Mary's comes to mind when I think of that.
Yeah. I mean, I think we did look at Shattuck as well. We had a friend, a male friend, family friend that had gone to Culver and really liked it. And I think just a good opportunity to kind of start something fresh there. A couple of the girls that I played with in Madison were also going. And so there was a few connections and different people that we kind of knew that really, kind of made that the best opportunity for me at the time.
So when you go there, you move away from home. I mean, this is it dorm living? You didn't have a billet family or anything, right?
Yep. We lived in the dorms.
Dorm living. So what was that like for a young, probably sophomore, 15 years old, something like that?
I was 15. It was a lot. Probably those first 6 months, was a huge change. I played soccer there as well, and we made it to the regional or sectional kind of games. And so we also didn't get to go home over break.
Wow.
And then over Thanksgiving, we were traveling for hockey. So I didn't go home at all, those first months. And I thought, oh my gosh. And so I went home at Christmas. I thought, I'm never going back. And I went back, and it was great. I really felt okay, this is the place that I need to be. But it was hard. It was hard those first few months. I mean, again, I have some of the old emails that I would send family and friends, because there wasn't that, connectedness maybe that we have now. But it was a big adjustment. And so, like I said, going back after Christmas, it was kind of like a restart and a refreshing thing. I also realized that when I went home, nothing is changing, right? People are still the same, right? I think I thought that I was missing so much of my home, my life back home in Marshfield, and it wasn't. I was still friends with the people that I was friends with, and I could still get along with them and still talk with them today. And so there was still that connectedness that I thought that I was missing. And then obviously the opportunities at Culver were great.
Well, that being said, with the opportunities, you excelled once again, because obviously college scouts were starting to knock on your door. What age were they starting to recognize you?
Yeah. So I think, one big thing, Culver did a really great job in those first few years of really recruiting folks that really they felt like had the opportunity to promote their program going forward. So I would say probably the first 3 to 4 years of graduates, every player I think played college hockey out of every graduate. So
Wow.
it was a really good recruiting opportunity for them. There was a lot of folks that came in, and then, like I said, a lot of those women that graduated played college hockey in those first few years. So I think there was a huge academic push, right, to really have us find a university that was going to be a good fit for us. But then on the, kind of athletic front, the men's or the boys program had been successful for many years before. And so there was also that piece of, or that connection to universities and athletic programs. I would say probably junior year, right, is when kind of some of those possibilities became realistic, right? We started to talk with programs. I played in some summer hockey, tournaments in different leagues, like Hockey Night in Boston. I don't even know if that's still a thing, but was a big opportunity to go out east and see universities and talk with players and coaches. But also even at Culver, we would play in tournaments out there to make sure that we had the opportunity to be seen at that level.
So you mentioned opportunities at Culver. So was it the hockey that drew you there? Was it the academics, the opportunities, or was it just a combination of all those things?
Yeah, I think a combination of both, right? So I think the ability to practice every day, right, was huge. Not having to drive in order to do that was obviously big on my parents' part. But, we had practice every day. We had lifting every day. Plus there was the academic piece, right? Like I wasn't going to be missing that. That was, they had the classes, the AP classes, the things that, I really also wanted to focus on. And so I think the combination of the two, but really having, and then the opportunity to be seen at like a higher level, right, athletically, was a big draw.
Well, your academics must have excelled in order to not only get a scholarship to Yale. I mean, obviously your hockey ability was excellent, but you had to have a mind and the intelligence to get there as well.
Yeah, so I appreciate that. I mean, I think looking back, I understand that. As a high school student, I maybe didn't quite. I mean, I had the drive, right, and the motivation to do well. I think I maybe didn't realize what that meant then. Now as an adult, I can say like, wow, that was I must have worked hard at some point in my life. And I did. I mean, I think I did. I was very focused. I tried to take accelerated classes. I tried to kind of put myself in the best position. I think, so University of Wisconsin used to play, the men used to play in a tournament in Milwaukee. And I think they just brought that back recently, where they'd go and they'd play kind of a holiday tournament against 4 teams. And I remember Yale being there. We used to go every year. My birthday was over the, Christmas to New Year's break, and we'd go to the tournament. We'd stay down in Milwaukee. And I remember Yale came to one of those tournaments, and I thought, I want to go there. Like that's cool. Like I want to go there. I want to play there. And, then when it kind of became something that seemed possible in high school, and I really started to talk with my academic advisors and really think about like, hey, is this something that is possible? And then talking with the coaches, Kelly O'Leary also had worked with the coach at the time, John Marchetti, previously on some of the national teams. So there was that connection as well.
Oh, sure.
And so I think there was really I thought, wow, this is really might be possible. Might have the opportunity to do this. And so, yeah, so, there was a lot of hard work, but then, really things falling into place, that made sense for me.
So let's talk about hockey a little bit. So you grew up playing with the boys, and now this is really the first time you're playing full-time with women. How'd your game have to change? Or did it have to change?
It definitely had to change. I mean, especially playing bantam. And at that time, like, there was checking and peewee as well as bantam. And like I said, my size, I was a pretty big player, and I was fast. So, even in the boys' game, I there was a lot of checking, right? And so I remember the first few times playing girls, I ended up in the penalty box a lot. There was a lot of penalties. I'd be
Does this
like,
remind you of Sis Paulson at all? We'll tell you a little story about that.
and I'd be in front of the net and just like pounding on people, and I'm like, why am I getting these penalties? Finally I had to realize like, okay, I can't like, smash people into the boards. And so that took a little bit of time, right? I had to kind of adjust to more of like a finesse game, more of a speed game, and not so much of the physicality. It's still physical for sure, right? And now with coaching and other things, really encouraging girls to play physical. But that all out kind of checking is not not so much.
That's a no-no.
We'll end you in the penalty box for sure. So,
what was your experience like at Yale? And you've talked a little bit about it, but why did you end up choosing them for sure? And what was your experience like there?
Yeah, again, I think, why did I choose them? I think the academic piece, right? I thought, wow, this is an opportunity that I can go to an amazing university. I can get a great education. I can really like write my ticket for afterwards, right? I can have opportunities. Even like I tell my patients, you want to be able to have options at the end of high school, at the end of college. So whatever you can do to put yourself in that position to be able to make the choice rather than the choice being made for you. So I really thought that Yale would give me that opportunity, to be able to, kind of do what I wanted. So that was the big thing. I did look at a few other universities, mostly out east. But I think, really the opportunity to study at Yale was like a huge draw. I applied early. I was accepted early. So by Christmas time of my senior year, I knew what I was going to do. And so I didn't really, kind of give other schools kind of the full opportunity at that point.
Did you know your field of study, or did you have a really good idea what you wanted to be?
Yeah, so I knew that I wanted to probably go into medicine. My mom was an internal medicine physician, so I knew that was kind of an area that I wanted to do. But I didn't necessarily know what I wanted to major in, right? So it's like you just enter and you start taking classes. So I ended up majoring in psychology and education. Again, not knowing that I wanted to do psychiatry, but that I thought that was an interesting path and interesting classes. I had to do pre-med subjects as well, like all those classes. So there was a lot of stuff that kind of crossed over between psychology, pre-med, and education. So I did both of those. I did end up teaching for a little bit after, at the end of my college career, and then a little bit after that, but ultimately then decided to go back and do graduate school and medical school.
What's that like as a collegiate athlete trying to balance your sport plus your education at the same time? Are professors forgiving, or do they just ride you that much harder?
I would say they are not forgiving. I mean, maybe not at Yale, at least. I don't know. They didn't seem to care too much what you did outside of their classroom. But I mean, they were helpful, right? I'm not saying that, but I think it was a lot for sure. I think so coming from Culver, right? So going back to high school, we had like a very rigid daily schedule, right? So you had revelry and the cannon went off at 6:45 in the morning, and you were up and you were showering and you had to be at breakfast by a certain time of day. So it was very rigid. And I think that prepared me well for college to stay on that very rigid schedule. There was closed study hours from, 7 to 9 or 6 to 8 or something at night, right? So there was a very defined schedule for us. So when I transitioned to college, I kind of stayed on that schedule, right? I stayed with that rigidity of like getting up at the same time. We would have morning lifts or morning, skates, things like that, and really taking the opportunities to study at specific times and really scheduling that into my day. but yeah, I mean, there's, if it was an hour of lift, an hour of dry land, and 2 hours of practice, plus showering and eating and nutrition and all the other things. I mean, it's kind of a part-time job in addition to the academic piece. So thinking back and like, wow, when did I find time to fit things in? But I think having that kind of practice in high school was really good for me moving into college and really staying with that defined schedule.
Boy, it certainly is a...
Well, it sounds like that's all you did. I mean, it was hockey in school and that was it?
That was pretty much it. Yeah. I mean, there wasn't a lot outside of that. I did do track in the spring and threw javelin on the track team. But that was kind of just a fun thing to do and enjoyable. But yeah, I mean, it was pretty busy a lot of the time.
Certainly an individual with drive.
She's driven. Holy cow.
Right,
yeah, absolutely.
Give a shout out to some of our sponsors here. Eau Claire Ford Lincoln Quick Lane with a large selection of new and used vehicles. We buy nice used vehicles any day of the week except Sundays. Eau Claire Ford is here for your parts and service needs for your vehicle. Ask us about our pickup and delivery options as well as Saturday service appointments. Visit us today in-store or online at eauclairford.com. Proud sponsors of the Breakout Sessions podcast and Riverside Bike and Skate, Eau Claire's hockey headquarters, which is the oldest hockey store in the state of Wisconsin. Buy hockey gear from the people that play and know the game. And don't forget about their bicycle sales and service, as well as your paddle sports center for kayaks and canoes. And Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, which has been committed to the healthcare needs of patients in western Wisconsin since 1954. The orthopedic surgeons and trainers serve many area schools. Their success and reputation as an outstanding orthopedic clinic can be attributed to the teamwork of friendly, knowledgeable physicians and staff. Mogi.
So, Allie, along the way, you found time to play 2 seasons with the Minnesota Whitecaps, who were members of a couple professional organizations before they all blended into a professional women's hockey league. What time of your life were you able to fit that in?
Well, first I'll say they won the championship last night.
Yes, so they did. Congratulations, PWHL.
Yeah. That was pretty exciting. So going back to the reason why I bring up track, I was riding home after our last track meet. And after playing hockey, for 4 years and being done, and we had lost in the ECAC tournament, and the season was over. We had a really great senior season. I thought, okay, I'm done. I'm not going to play hockey anymore. I'm going to hang up the skates. It's going to be over. I'll move on to track season, and then I'm going to graduate and move on with my life. And I remember taking the bus home from one of our last track meets and just thinking like, maybe I should still play hockey. Like maybe I'm not done. Maybe I want to keep playing. And some folks had reached out from the Whitecaps, and I had some friends that were going to be playing with them, and decided to try out. The tryouts were coming up in the spring after graduation, and I thought, maybe this would be a cool thing to do and see where it goes. And so I played. I already wasn't planning to go directly into medical school. I just had decided I was going to take some time off. I was going to work and do some other things. I was taking some more classes at the University of Wisconsin at the time. And so I decided to play with them for a few years, work and make some money and kind of not be like, just stuck in studying for 4 more years. So in between that time, I played with the Whitecaps, and I was living in Madison. And, then you think back about like, wow, how did I kind of fit this in? But I was working at the university at the medical school. And I was also working at a restaurant. And I remember my now husband and I we were living together, and we'd finish our jobs, our day jobs on Friday. And then we'd finish, I'll go back. So even Thursday night, we'd play men's league hockey. We'd be up until 2 a.m. And then we'd go to the day job, and then we'd go to our restaurant jobs, and then we'd get in a van, an old conversion van that had all the seats taken out with a mattress in the back. And we'd drive to Minneapolis at 11 o'clock at night. We'd get to Minneapolis because I'd have practice in the morning, like a pregame skate and then games. And we would just sleep in our van in the parking lot prior to the games, because I'm like, I'm not getting a hotel. We have like no money. I'm like, not getting a hotel at 4 a.m. to like have to get up at 8 for pregame skate. So we'd sleep in the van for a few hours, and then I'd go skate. And then usually on Saturday night, I'd stay with a teammate. So I wouldn't, like, at least the second night we would have a bed. And then we'd drive back and we'd start it all over. Wow. And I just think to myself, like, what were we doing? What were we thinking? One night there was actually, we were sound asleep, and then there was gunshots in the parking lot. And we thought, okay, maybe we shouldn't do this anymore. So then we started staying in hotel parking lots instead, because there was a little bit more traffic there, and then the hockey rinks in the middle of the night. But, it's like, then now you have kids and you're like, I thought I was tired now. Like, how did I even have energy to do this
chased a dream,
Holy
and nothing
cow,
was going to be
awesome.
a roadblock for
No,
you.
it was a lot of fun. I remember.
And you had a
those
supportive
days.
spouse?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And he was great.
That is very cool.
He would drive as, I would sleep or whatever, so.
That's
What an adventure. You've had quite a life so far, Allie.
so 2 years with the Whitecaps. I know it's not a high-paying position with the Whitecaps, but can you give us an idea of what a contract with them was like?
Yeah, so, not much. It's probably very different now than it was then. Like, we'd get our equipment. We had a team doc that would see us for, kind of basic stuff. And then we'd have our travel covered, really. So that's why I worked these other jobs to try to make kind of ends meet. But we would travel. So our games, we were the only U.S. team at the time. So our other games were all in Canada. And we would kind of fundraise for the travel and for tickets, and we try to get people as much, sponsorship and fans as we could get. So it's great seeing now they're on TV, they're doing great things.
Yes.
It's like,
Huge
that's
crowds.
a huge improvement, and just amazing to see. But yeah, we would, load up a bus and travel up to, Saskatchewan and Vancouver and kind of all different places to play, and, in these really small Canadian rinks with, probably way more fans than we had in Minneapolis at the time, but their whole town would come out, and they'd be, a lot of fun to see the folks that supported women's hockey.
Any road trip pranks that you can fill us in on?
Gosh, I don't know. I think I remember we drove once to Regina, Saskatchewan, and about 10 miles out of town. And I don't know if you've ever driven up there. It is like just a plain, right? It is so cold. Like we think it's cold in Wisconsin. Then you go there and there are no trees, like no mountains, no nothing to block the wind. And we blew a tire.
Oh,
It was about like 7 a.m. We were almost there, and we're like, okay, what do we do? Right? Like, we're just here. We couldn't even like go out and fix the tire because our hands would get so cold. So this lovely woman pulled over. She worked at the Humane Society, and she came out with like no jacket on, like no gloves on, like this the typical Canadian person comes out, and she's like, oh, I'll fix the tire for you. And she like puts a new tire on. I was like, it's incredible. Like, these people are amazing. We got into town, we played the games. It was great. But, I don't know. I don't remember any like specific pranks, but that would be.
Oh,
They
that's
were
a story.
sleeping.
Yeah. We
You're
were
tired, man.
no kidding.
I to think about that.
So there were a few iterations of women's professional hockey, and then finally, and we were lucky enough to talk to the GM of the Minnesota team, Natalie Darwitz, and she said the speed that it came together, and we were talking with her, and she's talking about all the different things she had to do, and she didn't have like years to do this. She had like months or weeks, days. But it all came together, and as you said, the Minnesota PWHL last night beats Boston 3-0. They're the Walter Cup champs. Everything's cool. How cool is that now? What does that mean for young ladies going into hockey now?
Yeah, I think, it's kind of another step, right? Like, I think there was this kind of first generation, and you talk about Natalie and other folks that, kind of after the women won the gold medal, right? And then there was like this huge push of like, okay, women's hockey is really coming about, or girls hockey is really, really gonna step up. And then now having this league start and really be a league, right? Like a real dedicated league, I think is another like really important step, right? We've got it on TV. We've got, folks that are really, really dedicated to this. I think, it's going to be, it's similar, right? Similar to really like when the women won the gold medal and now this next step, right? Of like, okay, really pushing forward, right? We think about like the WNBA or other professional women's sports leagues, and how that has improved participation and really focus on that on basketball, right? So, and I think this is really just another great opportunity. So it's pretty exciting.
Let's talk about your profession.
Yeah.
Psychiatry practice. We've talked a lot about women in sports and how far they've come. Obviously, there's a mental toughness that has to come with any athlete, and children are going through ever-changing things in their life. What are some of the areas you focus on with your patients? Yeah,
so I have kind of two parts of my practice. I have kind of a general psychiatry, child and adolescent, that I see kids for all reasons. That's kind of like my main practice. And then, part of coming here to the Marshfield Clinic was really that I could focus on a more dedicated sports medicine practice or sports psychiatry. Sports psychology has obviously been around for a long time, right? Like that mental preparedness and other pieces. So that's a piece of my practice. But then the psychiatric piece, really being able to provide that psychiatric diagnoses and treatment in terms of like the medication management as well as the therapy. So that's, been a really great opportunity here in Wisconsin and in Eau Claire. So as a part of that practice, I see kind of all ages, so adults as well as kids and teens, and all levels, right? So everything from kind of the amateur athlete to professional athletes. So really the whole range, as long as they're kind of within Wisconsin, I can see them, and so that's really been pretty cool. Working with a lot of different high schools in the area, some different universities. Obviously, like the larger University of Wisconsin, like they have their own folks, but some of the smaller universities and some of the athletes within those programs. And then, even like the Milwaukee Admirals, I work with some of those athletes as well, or, kind of with their team psychologist, if there's any additional support that's needed from the medication perspective.
So when you talk to kids growing up, things are really important to them. Their sports are important to them. Their friends are important to them. The family. How important is it when you work with them about instilling mental toughness and overcoming adversity?
Yeah. So I think, for athletes as well as non-athletes, I think that's a huge piece, right? Being able to understand, how do I push past the difficulty, the losses, the pain, not in a way that we want anyone to, have a concussion and then not tell their coaches, but in a way that is allows them to understand that ultimately this is what is going to prepare you for life, right? That there's always going to be setbacks. There's always going to be things that happen. And we really need to be able to, push there, feel a little bit uncomfortable and push past that, right? And so whether that's athletically, as a child or adolescent, or as an adult in your work or in, further athletic opportunities. So it's really helping them to understand that. And that is a huge piece, right? And especially with our athletes, that, it's not always going to be, I think we've changed our culture of athletics a little bit in, over time to, everything is great. Everyone does well, which is wonderful, right? We really want that positive perspective at a young age. But then at some point, like, losses are real, right? And we are going to lose games, and we are going to not play well, and we are going to get injured, or we are going to, have setbacks. So how do we deal with those, and how do we move forward in order, or learn from them and use those as opportunities of growth?
If I'm a parent and I'm seeing my child struggle, for whatever reason that is that the common path for referral to you? And does it come through their regular MD or do they come straight to you?
Yeah. So, like within the sports medicine world?
Yes.
Yeah. So usually, what are the reasons why I might see someone? It's usually going to be, there was a concussion and we're having a hard time recovering from that concussion, right? Or there's been multiple concussions, or there's been some other injury that now we have to return to play, and there's some difficulty with return to play. Outside of that, right, outside of that injury piece, there might be just general anxiety, whether that's in life or in athletics more specifically. Eating disorders is obviously another big piece that we see, in males as well as females. So, that's another reason why how people get to me, whether that's through their primary care or the family just reaches out, right? And there's a concern that the family has, performance wise or general mental health wise, right? And really, if there is, any problems or concerns that folks have.
How about if we take a little break for our sponsors and then you can get back to that?
You got it.
Okay, sounds good. Dooley's Pub has been Eau Claire's home for hockey and all sports fans since 2005. Dooley's Pub is a proud sponsor and booster of the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire and local high schools. Dooley's is located on historic Water Street, providing excellent food and service, and has all of your favorite sports televised at all times. And Computer Recovery Associates. They specialize in removing, monetizing, and recycling computer hardware from large data centers. Whether you're looking to relocate, repurpose, sell, or recycle, Computer Recovery Associates can help. Check them out at computerrecoveryassociates.com. And thanks to our friends at Market & Johnson, longtime supporters of the great game of hockey and our youth throughout the Chippewa Valley region.
You are a hockey player that excelled at the sport, playing at a collegiate level.
And professional.
And professional, absolutely. How important is mental toughness in the game, and how do you express that to some of your patients? Yeah,
so I think, and hockey, I think, is a big one, right? Because there are so many factors, right, that come into play, right? You can be on the bench for an extended period of time, or you can be out every other shift, right? So there's a huge, depending on what your role is, there's a huge spectrum of, playing time, right? So to speak. So I think, and additionally, right, we can, we have our practices, we have games, we have wins, we have losses, and in order to really stay focused, there needs to be that level of mental toughness through like all of those pieces, right? So I think, and then, kind of relating that to other sports, because obviously I don't see just hockey players, but I think we need to be able to really have the opportunity to, again, like push to that point of like, I feel really uncomfortable, right? Whether that's physically or mentally, and then push past that, right? And that's really how we get better athletically. That's how we get better mentally. And then practicing that, right? So just like how we would practice our slap shot or our stick handling or our skating or whatever it is, or our free throws or, whatever sport, we also have to be able to practice that mental side of things, right? So how do we, do our practice our visualization? How do we practice our imagery so that we not only have the physical skill that is kind of in check and we're working on, but we're also working on that mental piece. If we can't pull out that mental piece in practice, right? So, how are we going to pull it out in the Stanley Cup? Right? How are we going to pull out that mental toughness if we haven't practiced it all along? So it's not so much that people don't have the ability to, right? Most of the athletes that I do have the ability to have that growth mindset and be able to really focus on pushing through, but they don't practice it. So then when it comes to like the more stressful environments, they can't utilize that, right? They can't utilize the breakaway, right? Or, because that's a stressful environment. They can't stick handle because they haven't practiced the stick handling. They haven't practiced the shot. They haven't practiced the mental toughness or the kind of that mental side of the game. So that's really what we work on, is like practicing it. And like I said, whether that's through imagery or visualization or positive, self-talk, really self-confidence, really building that back up for them, and allowing them the opportunity to understand that is really like the focus of what we work on.
How important do you think it is for parents to allow their kids to face adversity and struggle through things and not always be there to make everything better?
Yeah, I think that's a huge piece. And I think going back to what I mentioned, and kind of like I don't have a problem with participation trophies, so I don't want to like, give that a bad rap. But I think without the opportunity at a young age to have ever lost, right? And I'll use that as like a term for adversity. That's not just it, right? You might win, but not do well, right? Or you might win, but get injured. So I think without that adversity, like you never, right? You're going to face it eventually, right? So it doesn't allow you the practice of building up that ability, right? Or finding those growth opportunities, those growth mindsets. So, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm not saying that at 5 years old, you should like beat your kid in every card game or every basketball game that you ever play. But like at some point there has to be some ability to say, yeah, that's what happens. Like if we don't prepare, if we don't practice, if we don't do things, in order to reach success, we might not be successful. Yeah. Right. So, I think that's very important, right? To have those conversations at least. Again, we don't have to be like, stick-handling around our kid at 5 years old, but allowing them the opportunity to see that and to have those conversations, I think is really important.
So do you ever work with parents who have problems letting their child face that adversity? I work with the kids, but do you work with the parents too, saying, sometimes you have to back off and let them struggle a little bit?
Yeah, I think so. Two sides of things. I think one, that, and then the other side is maybe the kid not wanting that level of success, but the parent really wanting the level of success. And so helping the parent to come to where the kid is at. Right. So meeting them, and it may be somewhere in the middle. But yes, helping them to understand that like, okay, maybe you need to back off a little bit. And if they fail, that's okay. That's a growth opportunity. But at the same, and then the other side of that is allowing them to understand, like, where is your kid at? Like, what does your kid want to do? What is their goal? What is their aspiration? Are they saying this because you want it or because they want it? Right. And sometimes kids need a push, right? They need some external support to help them kind of get to where they need to be. But if we're not meeting somewhere there, then that's a lot of times where a lot of that anxiety and difficulty comes from.
Boy, words of wisdom for parents there.
Yeah, hopefully they're listening.
You had mentioned professional athletes and referenced the Milwaukee Admirals. What sort of challenges do professional athletes have that they come to you?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So that is a little bit different scenario just because they have a team psychologist, right? They have someone that they can work with on those mental skills, preparation, maybe performance difficulties. When they would be referred to me would be if there were more medication specific concerns, right? They have a history of anxiety. They have a history of ADHD. They have a history of something that's getting in the way of their ability to perform at the level that they want to perform at. And then as we kind of, if they don't have a team psychologist, right, and they don't have someone that's working with them, then that would be another role that I would fill in, right, to help with really focusing on, that self-confidence, that insightfulness, and the performance abilities.
Is there a defined line that you follow, or is it a gray area that you decide, okay, I can no longer assist this individual simply by talking to them and visualizing, where I have to do the medication needs? Yeah.
So I think, and so when we talk about treatment, right, we think about treatment as like maybe therapy, maybe other things, maybe medication. And the treatment is really the package of those three things, right? If we think about a pizza, we have these three big slices of options.
Pizza.
It's not even noon yet, but maybe.
Great reference.
So we have these three slices, and really how big those slices are, right, is really like what the person needs. And we think about, right, like at some point, right, if there is an impairment in the individual's function, that other stuff, right, when I think about that, like sleep, nutrition, exercise, social relationships, other just healthy habits, that might be in the other stuff category. Then we have like this therapy section, then we have this medication. So if the other stuff isn't working, then maybe we add therapy, right? And we say, okay, your function is not where you want it to be, right? Whether that's work or relationships or hockey or sleep, anything, right? Then we move on to, okay, well, now the therapy, we've worked through this, we've worked through the different modalities, we've kind of gone, we've talked about it, we've given you the skills, you practice the skills, you put them into place, but it still doesn't seem to be enough where you feel that your function is where you want it to be. Then we think about medication, right? So it's really, and I think especially for athletes that have a really great awareness of how their bodies feel and how they want their bodies to feel, medication is kind of the last thing that we might consider, because we want to try all these other things first, right? And really get a good opportunity for them to practice these other skills. Then the medication is in place really to bring us back to a baseline, and then the hope is maybe longer term we don't need that. So,
have you seen an increase in the number of young patients you've seen over the years? Yeah.
I mean, I think unfortunately, like nationally, there's a shortage of child and adolescent psychiatrists. So, and services, right? Not just psychiatrists, but, services in general for youth. And so in terms of like my schedule, it's always been busy. But I would say that the need is greater, right? Like we see a greater need. We see a greater need for more of a population-based perspective or treatment perspective, which would be amazing, right? And the hard part is, of how insurance covers that is maybe not as great as we'd like it to be. But I think, it's very one-on-one. It's very, very individualized. And we need to figure out a way as a country, right? Or as a society of how we can kind of spread the wealth and spread the services to more of like a population of people as opposed to like individual services.
So, somebody has a broken leg. It's obvious what you need to do. Someone tears a ligament in a knee. You have to get it fixed. Mental health has not always been, accepted is not the right word, but it was kind of more taboo. You didn't talk about that. Mm-hmm. But more and more, it's coming to the forefront. That's a great thing for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for population in general.
Yeah, I think like having more people talk about it, right? And more people bring attention to it, more people speaking out about struggles that they've had has been super helpful, right? To maybe normalize to some extent, right? Like it's normal to break your leg, right? Well, it's also normal to have depression. It's also normal to have ADHD. And it's normal to get treatment for those things, right? And so I think having, especially professional athletes that over the last, probably 8 years or so start to speak out and about their own struggles has been helpful to really, one, put services into those arenas, right? But then also make future athletes or individuals like kind of reach out on their own as well. So I absolutely agree with that the awareness has improved and the stigma is, hopefully kind of decreasing a little bit as time goes on.
You had mentioned depression. In the youth sports world, are you seeing kids on a regular basis who have depression and or suicidal thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think that yes, and sports in general is protective, right? To some extent, right? There is this protective entity of exercise, of involvement, of social engagement, being on a team, being a member of something, right? There is a piece that can help youth, right? So we obviously are encouraging youth, whether that's to play on a team or to just be active and be physically active. That's helpful. But at the same time, athletes are not immune to depression or bipolar or anxiety or anything like that. And so we do face that, right? I think one of like a huge thing that pushed me into sports psychiatry was the idea of like post-event depression, right? Or post-event difficulty. So after someone finishes their college career or finishes the big race, right? Or finishes the Ironman, how do they feel, right? And at the time I was, my brother rode crew at the University of Wisconsin, and he had a teammate that at the end of the season, he ended his life by suicide. He could not deal with the removal of that sport. And it was really, really hard. That was a huge push. I was, after that, training for the Wisconsin Ironman, and I was working with some athletes then, and there were folks that after the race was done really struggled. They didn't know what to do next. And so I think that piece was huge for me, right? To kind of push me into like, they're not immune, right? It maybe helps with kind of removing some of the difficulty. It has that sense of belonging. It has that sense of like pride and reassurance. But then once it's done, like what happens?
Wow. There's a lot of people that I hope listen to this, and if they're struggling, reach out for the service that they need. That's, Let's go to something a little bit more.
Yeah, I was just going to try to lighten it up a little bit. It's like, it's getting heavy, but that's so important.
Yeah,
so important.
And absolutely. I mean, that would be the goal, is that people reach out, whether that's to their parents, their coaches, their, primary care providers, a behavioral health clinic in their area, or to us specifically. It doesn't have to be us. It can be anyone. But reaching out and telling someone is really the most important. And then
first step. Yeah.
Things can come from there. Yeah. So, yeah.
What you had just mentioned about the athlete that didn't know what to do, I recently had a good friend who ended his career with suicide. And I'm relating to that. And unfortunately, he didn't reach out, because I'm certain that somebody like you could have helped with that situation.
Yeah. And that's the goal always, right? At least we can find an immediate answer, and then things might take longer, but we could find that immediate solution.
You are coaching right now.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to throw that in because there's a lot going on with her. We've been trying to get Allie for some time, and she's been busy. So you have a family of your own. Congratulations on baby number 4. Holy cow. But you still take time to give back as a coach at the Eau Claire Youth Hockey Association. Why do you do that? Why is it important for you to give back to the game?
Yeah. So I started coaching out of college, and coached with some teams with the Capitals down in Madison for a few years. And it's crazy now, because like those girls have kids. I'm like,
oh boy,
wait, was that long ago? But it was. They have, like homes and families and kids and jobs, and it's crazy to think about. But so that was really, really neat, right? Even as a young female and coming out of college, and really like seeing like the impact that I could have on those young girls playing hockey. And then, now having my own kids and coaching in Eau Claire has really been, again, that opportunity to really make an impact on the game, on the youth, right? Whether that's they play hockey longer term or not, but really showing that there can be females that really, can be successful, right? And can be successful in sport, or can be successful in their careers, can have families, can do lots of things. It doesn't have to be just one lane. I think, additionally for me, I coach with a great head coach, Chris Lombardo, who coaches at the university with the women. And so for me, it's also like I'm learning every day, right? Which is amazing. like every single day, he'll teach me something different about the game and about women's hockey and about the opportunities that are there. So that's been cool. I think also having the university women come in to our locker rooms and our skates and help with coaching has been really cool. But I think it's really just seeing the women in those roles is really important for the girls, right? And to be able to, like I said, whether that's hockey or something else, is really important for them. So I coach with the River Hawks now, so they're a combined team, and it's been a lot of fun to do that. I probably stopped skating with them when I was like 34-ish weeks pregnant. So I got to a point where I was like, you're going to have to tie my skates now. I can't tie them myself. But it was a lot of fun. And even when I was pregnant, I was able to get out there a few nights a week. So
wow. Awesome.
You have found a work-life balance somewhere in there, and bless you for that. That's for sure. Do you have any advice for young youth players, or specifically young girls who want to or are interested in playing hockey? Yeah.
I mean, I think keep at it, right? Like that's the biggest thing. I think there's a couple pieces there. I think, not letting one situation pull you down, right? Or deter you from continuing to moving forward. I think also being aggressive, right? I mean, that is like the thing, right? I think if we can, and I know maybe I was a little bit too aggressive when I started playing girls hockey, but in general, if the girls can be aggressive in their play, that is like the success to getting started, right? And then the skills can come, right? So that's a huge push for me is getting in there, fighting the battles, and whether that's physically or mentally, every single day, right? And really pushing themselves every day. I think, other pieces that I kind of live by and I encourage my kids, I listened to one of the women's national team soccer players talk, and one of her comments was preparation creates separation, right? So really that preparation needs to be there in order to create the separation from other people, right? To really be noticed. If that's what you want to do, you have to prepare, whether that, again, mentally or physically. And then, a lot of folks use the statement of practice makes perfect. To me, I don't love that. I think perfect practice makes perfect. Yep. And so I think that's my other kind of mantra that I focus on with the girls is, you need to practice how you're going to play, and you need to practice perfectly. Not that you need to be perfect, but the practice needs to be perfect. You need to do it the way that you want to do it in order to learn how to do it well. And I think that's, again, whether that's mentally or physically, something that folks need to work on, and just keep pushing, right? And I think winning every and the girls will start to copy me as I say this, because I say it so many times. But if you win every battle to the puck, and then you win every shift, you win every period, then you win the game, right? And so if we can do, again, whether that's mentally or physically on the ice or in life, if we can win every battle to the puck, then we can win the game, right? But if we can't win those battles to the puck, if we can't win those struggles, those opportunities for growth, if we can't win those, then we're not going to win, right? We're not going to be a winner. So, and again, life is not about winning every game, but it is about winning, right? Those struggles, winning those battles, and then overcoming that adversity or winning those games. So that's like a huge piece for me. And I know they get annoyed by it, but I just repeat it over and over and over again.
Do you think she could coach us? Should we talk to her about that? We could use some of that
right here.
Man, I don't know if I could handle her as a coach anymore. It's like, holy cow. So, Dr. Jones, I just have one more question for you. It's more little more lighthearted. So the PWHL came together so quickly that the teams didn't get names. Okay, they told them what color you're going to wear in PWHL, Toronto, Ottawa, Minnesota, whatever. Would you like to see the Whitecaps name brought back?
Yeah, I mean, I think that'd be great. I thought it was a great name. Our original logo was like a wave with like this cartoon wave. It was like the Penguins colors, the gold and black and white, and I thought it was great. I thought it was wonderful, but I think that'd be a good one to come back. I'd have to think about if there was a different name that I'd be that I would support.
Well, I'll tell you what, this has been an honor to have you here, and you have given some insightful information, and I'm hoping not only parents but kids listen to this. Allie, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, please don't forget to give us a thumbs up or a comment on your social media platform. Helps Mogi and I stay in the game.
Absolutely. And again, a big thanks to our special guest, Dr. Allie Jones, as well as you folks, our faithful listeners. Please remember to visit our sponsors, Riverside Bike and Skate, Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, Dooley's Pub, Eau Claire Ford, Computer Recovery Associates, and Market & Johnson. Please follow us on your favorite social media platforms. And remember, folks, until next time, keep your head on a swivel and stay on your inside edges.